finances, very stable life, but he wanted something else. He wanted to be a fighter pilot. So about 3 years ago, this guy reaches out to a guy by the name of Jonathan Millman, who runs an Instagram account called The Glow Master. So he reaches out, basically with just initial inquiries and questions saying, hey, how can I make this dream become a reality? And so he reaches out to John Millman, C-17 reservist at March. He says, this is what you do, this is how you make a path and apply to Guard reserve units, and basically directs him. So at that point, you see Reed Barrett reach out to John Millman, and at that point, Reed Barrett applies to the 121st Fighter Squadron at Washington, D.C. At said point, Washington, D.C. decides to take a chance on him, and now this guy he has a slot in the 121st Fighter Squadron, and he currently is a student at Vance Air Force Base. Now, I'm an instructor at Vance Air Force Base, and Reed Barrett's one of my students, and John Millman is a guy I went to pilot training with. This is the first time that I got to see how digital recruiting essentially is going to influence recruiting in the future and basically where it's going. So let's get away from Reed Barrett. Let's look at this story. So Jonathan Millman, he runs an Instagram account called The Glow Master. The Glow Master has 30,000 followers right now. What does that mean? It's not that just 30,000 people see, posts and spam. They get to see aviation-minded content that John Millman posts every single day. So these people see basically, what he's doing with the Air Force and how he's living his life, which is pretty cool. So after reaching out to John Millman, I find out that about 50 to 100 people are reaching out to Millman weekly. There's a lot more Reed Barretts than we initially thought, but most of them don't have that success story. So John is answering these people as best as he can. He's trying to answer their questions, he's trying to filter it, and essentially, he tries to direct them to the best of his ability to a recruiter. Where can he take this? So we see this initial, level of interest of people reaching out. We see him talking to John Millman's Instagram account. So I'm like, okay, if John has this issue, I wonder if anyone else has this issue. So we start reaching out to several other Instagram accounts, social media influencers. One guy is a Thunderbird. Another guy's an Air Force Academy cadet. Another person is a pararescueman veteran. And each one of these people has essentially a target base of approximately 100,000 people. Each one of these is seeing 50 to 100 people at least reaching out weekly, and they're doing the best they can to get this information. They're doing the best they can to get these people into recruiters, but we're seeing there's a massive gap that exists right now, and we're just trying to identify how we can streamline the process. So basically we came up with the concept. We already have social media. We already have initial audience. We have social media influencers. We just need to find a way to get them from point A to point B, which is the Air Force. We came up with a very simple solution, which is a digital recruiting cell. Len, do you want to talk about what this idea actually is?
Yes. So this digital recruiting cell, what it is essentially, it's a beta cell, just like General Kwast has stood up for UPT Next. And what we're doing is we're not detracting away from traditional recruiters right now. We're just asking for 2 to 3 recruiting bodies to stand up a cell that sits at Air Force Recruiting Headquarters, and their job is to provide that access point, that bridge, for John Millman to connect these potential recruits that are showing propensity to serve to answer their questions. So, cause like we said, John Millman cannot answer all these questions. He's doing the best he can, but he needs somebody to filter them too. And that's what this digital recruiting cell is providing. And the best part about it, it's low cost, low risk, because we're leveraging resources we already have. We're not asking people to go out and create an Instagram page and start hashtagging US Air Force. What we're saying is, the John Millmans already exist. They already have the audience, they already have the interest. What we're saying is providing that avenue. So this is extremely low cost, extremely low risk, can be easily implementable in 3 to 6 months, setting up a cell that provides that avenue, that bridge.
And the best part we're seeing is that this centralized location of 3 or 4 people, they can connect with everyone on a local level. So from one place, strategically, they can be locally involved in everyone's community across the United States. They're not geographically constrained or limited. So now 3 or 4 people are answering questions that are basically collecting, and based on just identifying the 7, 8, 10 accounts of social media influencers we found, we're very confident this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're missing out on these people right now, whether we're aware or not.
And the key point to this though is that, hey, call 1-800-recruiting. John Millman's not telling this guy, this potential recruiter, hey, call 1-800-recruiting and he'll get back to you. It's, hey, call my buddy Mike. He's sitting at Air Force Recruiting Headquarters. He's gonna get in touch with you. He's gonna answer your questions. Mike's gonna reach out to this potential recruit and say, hey man, heard you're interested in this, heard about you from John Millman. What can I do for you? How can I help you? It's a warm handoff. It's a connecting human to human connection. It's providing that human to human connection where we're losing recruits at.
Cool. And then as far as some of the data goes, so we've already established leveraging what already exists. We've already established that we're going to create and sell. How does the data work? Okay, so right now there's 600 million users on Instagram. Okay, so this market already exists. It's a matter. Forbes magazine right now equates for every 100,000 followers, that's about $1,000 for a paid advertisement. So one paid advertisement for like a 2-week run is $1,000. These people already have that audience and they're consistently plugged in. So it's free advertising. It already exists. Looking at, and we're going to try and stay away from the term millennial, but looking at 27% of the world population is millennial. Obviously, we're targeting within the United States. One-fourth of people who basically are kind of the young population right now spend more than 5 hours a day on their smartphone. This is their primary access point. 84% of that audience does not trust paid advertising. They don't like being solicited. What they do like is user-generated content. So the same stat, right around 86% of people prefer user-generated content. What that means is they're looking at these influences, they're seeing basically their stories, what they're producing, and saying, hey, if John Millman likes the Air Force, I like the Air Force. A lot of people hear this in terms of finances and like, okay, cool, that's spending decisions, I got that. But in terms of spending decisions, like getting beyond it, it's the sense of GE actually exploited careers. So GE funded a campaign in 2016. They got a name by the name of Sam Postman. And essentially he produced a film. And what this film did is it kind of showed how GE actually employs their sensors and their scientists. And they went into the mouth of hell in Nicaragua in 2016. They filmed all this stuff. They posted on Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook. And what they saw is the following year in 2017, they saw recruiting go up 800% for scientists at GE. So people are making career decisions based off of user-generated content. So it's more than just paid advertising. Ultimately, what we think is actually happening is, in terms of moving away from it, people feel that they can identify with the stories. They see the personal signs, and unfortunately, the Air Force is kind of plugged into its reputation in the news. So a lot of it you kind of have associations of, maybe sacrifice, maybe conflict, maybe Iraq. What these people are showing is that their normal lives, their husbands, wives, children, kids, daughters, all the above, and they live very normal, exciting lives, and they also happen to be the Air Force. Ultimately, people are seeing that identity, and that's what's attracting them to these influencers. We don't have to identify what the forefront of social media is. As long as we have airmen who are basically good at advertising their skills, we just have to identify those airmen. That's our only goal. And ultimately, beyond that, right now we know Reed Barrett is a success story, but honestly, we could say there's probably thousands at this point who have missed that opportunity, and that's what we need to capitalize on right now. So, that's it.
Are those folks sponsored by the Air Force in any way in your construct?
Yeah.
Should they be?
Eventually they will be. And so the sense is, I think that marketing right now, so just talking to John Millman, Amazon, AV Watch Company, like 3 different brands, large brands have reached out to him to be an actual endorsement. Our concern is that if the Air Force is incentivizing it, it becomes like almost a PA liability of endorsement.
Yeah.
John's posting those pictures already. We can mitigate the liability by basically just having him reach out. John Millman just has essentially that recruiter that he can pass it to. I think in about 3 or 4 years, the data is going to validate how much these social media influencers are worth, and then eventually we will have to pay them for what they do.
So I've also always had sort of a weird taste in my mouth with these folks, to be honest with you, because they're Air Force members, and yet I feel like they're almost sort of, I don't know, selling their lifestyle in a weird way. And I don't know about this guy in particular, but I have come across a C-17 pilot. I think it's the dude that I'm thinking of, but
yeah.
He's not as bad, but I've come across some, so I'll be blunt, there's some females that in my opinion have like sort of, they walk that line between being Instagram models and also Air Force members at the same time. To me, that's a concern. So I guess what would be the answer to, I guess sort of what I'm getting at is, do they have to now curtail information that they're posting knowing that they're being sponsored by the Air Force?
So she's not sponsored by the Air Force. And that's the fact of the matter, she's walking that line right now, whether we consent or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so all we're doing is essentially behind the scenes taking her recruits and questions. Because that's the thing is, in order to endorse her, it creates a whole other scenario.
So in a way, it's almost like Kim Kardashian is drinking a Coke in her Instagram picture, but really underneath it all, she's getting $1 million from Coke.
And the most superficial.
But it doesn't come off as an ad.
In the most superficial level, that's what it is. But I think ultimately people have difficulty identifying why they resonate with these people. I think ultimately what it is you see an Air Force commercial with an F-22 fly over, you're like, that's cool. but you can't connect the dots to do it.
Right.
You see a person like that girl who, like, this is a normal girl, she just goes to a gym like I go to,
Mhm.
she dates a guy like I do, like all the same, and she also flies. It creates a feasibility that I don't think people would see on their own. And that's the vagueness, I think, of Air Force, because that's beyond our presentation, our scope, but I think it shows a possibility that I don't think we would have before that.
Okay. Do you have any concern? I'm just trying to go through some of my
Yeah.
Instagram examples that I'm familiar with. So the most recent Viper demo pilot, do you guys know the details on that?
Yes.
So she got named the first female Viper demo pilot, and then a week later, her Instagram account just disappeared. Because there was something happened, I don't know, I still don't know the specifics of what happened, but is there any concerns associated with like the type of, I guess, blowback that you might get in a scenario where somebody becomes almost borderline famous as an Air Force member, and then there's like day-to-day life of Air Force type stuff that goes on? Like sooner or later,
Yeah.
these people are gonna be 06s and they're not gonna be able to do what they do on Instagram.
But it will change, like the maturity will change. So this is actually a huge liability that most companies have. Like let's say Hollister, clothing company, they're endorsing someone, they don't know. This kid's immature, he's 19. Like the difference is at least these captains are intertwined with their careers for the most part. So most people aren't going to be that drastic. She's towing the line. Other people are living in more in the sense like, listen, I understand that every picture I post of a C-17 in this, I have to own to. There's a lot of squadron accountability. Squadrons, they're not naive to these people in their units, you know? And so in the sense, like, we are incurring a risk, but every other company globally is capitalizing on this. And so there's an article that talks about how 50% of small businesses are using this because they're assuming that most corporations are already capitalizing it.
Yeah.
Most people aren't just trying to overlook this, which is what's so strange. And so ultimately, like I said, we are trying to move away from what already exists, and we're just trying to our whole goal is the bridge.
Yeah.
We don't want to change content. We don't want to endorse people. It gets gray really quickly. But we do want a simple solution to moving them from recruiters. Because the problem with recruiters right now is they don't take it seriously. I would have to zero in on this, but I think they're geographically focused. And so when our actual presentation, we have pictures, you know, of these accounts reaching out saying, hey, this guy wants a pilot, he wants to know where to go next, and someone says, you can direct all things to the recruiting Air Force page. Like,
Yeah.
it's like an answering machine that just keeps going back to 7. Like, they're not cashing in on what should be so simple.
So, I got a couple more. So, OPSEC concerns, did you guys talk about that at all?
Yes.
You got a C-17 pilot flying all over the world. Why is that C-17 pilot in Iceland at a certain time a year doing something else? And any concerns from an OPSEC perspective?
I mean, unless the Air Force stops what he's already doing.
I'm sure there's something there, just
Yeah.
something to think about.
Okay.
The other piece is, yeah, this works for pilots. I got it. Everyone likes pilots, but how do I get a space operator in the mix with this? How do I get a cyber operator in the mix with this? Like, do we think about other career fields?
So the problem with the Air Force is obviously it's generated content. Like if cyber has these cool missions and they're on Cape Canaveral and they have Instagram, because I know they do.